Hello, I'm deconstructing my PC setup for you, everything that I use for recording music and getting it into YouTube. Today I'm talking about the ExpertKeys EK-58, which is this thing. It's basically like a keyboard add-on, but it's just an absolutely integral part of my workflow now. The day this thing breaks down, I'll buy a new one. It's just, this is now an essential part of the setup. And I want to talk about some of the core functionality. If you own a PC keyboard with plenty of hotkeys, you can probably get away without owning one of these, but I can't recommend it highly enough. It's been an absolute game changer for me to take all of that stuff out of the PC and have it on a dedicated box. It's right next to my left hand and it's in use constantly. Probably the most important buttons are actually these four, because they give me functionality that's actually just a pain in the arse when you're inside the application. When you're editing audio, zoom vertically is when you go to vary audio and you enter vary audio. The lines are tiny. You can't tell any of the audio. And I can't remember what the keyboard shortcut is, but you can assign keyboard shortcuts for all of this stuff. And if you've got a fantastic memory and you can remember all of these keyboard shortcuts, good luck to you. I applaud you, but I can't. My brain's like a sieve. So zoom vertically is one of the critical ones because you can create little macros for this thing, and zoom vertically is basically like 4 increments of the zoom button, because one on its own is utterly pointless. So I think I tend to find I have to zoom about 10 times to get to the resolution I want to. And so I think I've got this button set to about 3 or 4. So it's just a shortcut I can hop. So that's a really, really useful feature. Zoom locators again, absolutely huge, massive function. Get it shortcutted somewhere, use it all the time. Select your parts, get your locator set. Click that thing, it just makes it full screen. Zoom selected I don't use quite as much because I generally tend to work with locators primarily. Zoom full, again, absolutely superb. You hear it's the whole song. Zoom full zooms you out to the entire song. So if I'm like doing lots of editing, let's say I've got loads of different size screens, I've zoomed in, I'm looking at this thing over here, I've got this thing like this, and I've been looking at this track over here, and everything's all in kind of chaos and confusion. Press zoom full and then zoom 1, which is this little button down here. So zooms everything to 1 regular track height width, and I'm back to square one. It's so simple. You can see I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, the most common zoom functions I use, and I don't have to bother about finding those tiny little piddly buttons over here that I despise. They're way too small, and I don't want to take up any more real estate with them. It's poor. So I've just got those buttons assigned. Logical editor, use that all the time. I've just been using it today to write chords. When I wrote a melody thing in chords and then split it out into 3 individual tracks. I've got logical editor functions for doing all of that kind of stuff. Render selected I use a fair bit. The quantize values, just constantly forgetting this stuff, so I gave up trying to remember. Merge unmuted, that's a great one. So this is your MIDI tracks where you've got multiple different tracks. You want to get them all down into one, maybe drum beats that you picked in from, pulled in from various sources. Solo your entire song, unmute the tracks you want, press that button, and then, via a process of merging. I think I've covered it in my Cubase tutorial at some point, and merge them all together. Tracks from lanes is absolutely brilliant. This is when you might have recorded 6 tracks of harmonies. I'll have a session with Pauline where she'll just sing in a loop, and there might be like 4 tracks that are great, and I want to keep them all, so I can do all of the editing and the selection of them, and then tracks from lanes just blows them out onto 4 individual tracks, and then I'll really dive in and start doing the fine-tuned editing when I've got them onto single tracks. So I use that one an awful lot. These 4 down here, they're on this corner of the keyboard for a good reason. These are the ones that you press most often when you're using them. So if I'm editing audio, for instance, constantly toggling between delete and comp. If you're using the comp tool on multiple audio tracks, you comp up to the next track, you listen to it, You might just notch up to your split button, split something up, and then come back down and delete. So split and glue are kind of logically connected, but delete and comp work really, really well together as a pair when you're editing audio tracks. Delete loose doubles is another macro that I created. It basically temporarily quantizes your part down to 30 seconds, I believe, then does the delete doubles and then undoes the quantize. So if you've got notes that you've recorded live and they're very close to each other and you only want one copy of them, maybe you've done a mix merge and you've got multiple notes that are very nearly at the same point, you can't actually delete doubles unless they're at exactly the same point. So delete doubles is used an awful lot. Deactivate Solo, you see me use that on back on track episodes quite regularly. When I'll solo something to show it to you, that's the button I'm pressing to deactivate all of those solos. And duplicate track no data, that's another huge one as well. So just a great piece of kit, really, really useful. You can see, you know, that it is heavily utilized. This is my address. So if I'm writing letters to people, you know, I don't have to type my postcode, like, so that's my postcode button. So any number of USB extension keyboards on the market, but I think this one is great. The ability to assign macros to the keys and have them perform multiple operations, I think, is invaluable. It's really good quality, mechanical keys, very robust, very well made, and totally reliable, just works all the time. So it's such an integral part of my setup that I thought I'd spend some time talking about it, because I do think it's absolutely invaluable. And if you're getting into Cubase and you can't quite bear the prospect of having to remember all of those shortcuts, put in your most useful ones, the ones that you use most often, into individual dedicated keyboard slots. Just better. Can't recommend it highly enough. Hope you found this video useful. If you did, please consider subscribing, hit notifications, and I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.